Today we're diving into the kinds of threats you can't always see, those internal risks that can silently and totally undermine an entire company. For any leader, one of the biggest challenges is trying to figure out what's a real problem and what's just a gut feeling.
So let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. Do you know with 100% certainty what's actually going on inside your own company? It sounds simple, right? But the answer, well, it's almost always way more complicated than we'd like to admit.
So where do these hidden problems even start? Well, a lot of the time, it doesn't begin with some big, obvious event. It starts with something much quieter, a simple nagging feeling, suspicion. Let's take a look at the real damage that can do.
It's so easy to just brush off suspicion as, a morale issue or just a bad vibe in the office. But here's the thing we have to understand. When that doubt isn't resolved, it turns into a very real, very tangible financial risk. It just eats away at the foundation of everything, trust, and that can have some seriously bad consequences down the line.
And this brings us to a classic and super frustrating dilemma for anyone in charge. What are you supposed to do when that gut feeling, that suspicion, is all you've really got to go on?
I mean, so many leaders have been in this exact spot. Your gut is just screaming that something's off, maybe with an employee's behavior, maybe with the numbers, but you've got no hard proof. If you act too soon, you could ruin someone's career. But if you wait too long, it could be even worse. It's a real high-stakes trap.
So, the big question is, how do you get out of that trap? What if you could actually move past those gut feelings and get to the cold, hard facts? Well, the approach we're about to explore is all about getting clarity through a much more objective scientific lens. And that brings us to the tool right at the center of all this, the polygraph. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Movies, TV shows, right? Let's set that aside for a second. In this context, it's defined as a psychophysiological study. The whole point is to use a scientifically backed method to get honest answers, so you can make decisions based on objective data, not just on emotion.
And here's a big reason why it's used in these kinds of high-stakes situations. We're talking about a claimed accuracy rate of up to 98%. When you have that level of precision, it's argued that you can finally move from that murky world of suspicion into the much clearer territory of making a truly informed decision.
Okay, so this tool exists, but where is it actually the most helpful? Let's break down some of the most critical risk areas where this kind of objective verification can have the biggest impact.
Let's start with one of the most direct threats out there, theft and embezzlement. It's a really uncomfortable question to ask, for sure, but an absolutely critical one.
And look, theft isn't always as simple as cash missing from the till. It can be way more sneaky. Things like shuffling company money around, creating fake invoices for stuff that was never bought, or messing with inventory records. These are the kinds of sophisticated problems that can go completely unnoticed for months, sometimes even years.
All right, now let's talk about a risk that can be even tougher to spot: commercial bribery. Are your employees making decisions that are best for your company, or are they being influenced by someone else? This is all about hidden influence, right? An employee getting gifts from a supplier, who then, surprise, gets a sweetheart deal. Or someone pushing for another company's interests instead of your own, or maybe promising special treatment for a little payment on the side. Every single one of these actions quietly poisons your business from the inside out.
Next up is a risk that is just massive in our digital world: information security. Think about it. Your data is one of your most valuable assets, but how safe is it really?
A data breach doesn't always come from some anonymous hacker on the other side of the world. A lot of the time, the biggest threat is already inside the building. It could be an employee sending your client list to a competitor, copying top-secret files onto a personal thumb drive, or casually chatting about your strategic plans with a rival. The damage from any of these can be absolutely devastating.
And finally, let's talk about something that's a bit harder to measure, but is every bit as important: loyalty. How can you really be sure that your team is on your side, working with you and not quietly against you?
A lack of loyalty isn't just a vibe. It shows up in real actions. We're talking about someone deliberately trying to hurt the company's reputation, or covering up for a coworker who's doing something seriously wrong, or just straight up lying to leadership. These things don't just hurt morale. They create a toxic culture and basically kill any sense of accountability.
So after you've identified all of these potential risks, what's the end game here? It's not just about finding problems for the sake of it. It's about what you do next. It's about turning that objective data into clear, smart, strategic action.
It all really boils down to 4 key outcomes. You can get a much clearer picture of an employee's real loyalty, you can verify their financial honesty, and you can spot personal risk factors, like maybe a hidden gambling debt, that could push them to do something desperate. All of this comes together to give you a solid, fact-based foundation for those really tough personnel decisions, whether it's a promotion or a termination.
And that really brings us to the core of it all. In business, you just can't have trust without truth. It's impossible. If you want to build a strong, resilient, successful company, you have to start with that foundation. So the real question this leaves us with is, how far are you willing to go to find it?